welcome everybody to the Band of Gamers podcast, or actually I should say newscast, episode number 88 and a half. Sorry for the delay. I was having some browser issues again with the DB stories. Polygon's giving me issues tonight, I guess, so I had to close out of those, but we'll get through that. So I'm your host, Osiris Prime, and with me tonight is we got our full crew. So we got Zeus Adamus, and we have, say hi.
This is the only thing keeping me from prey.
Oh. And making his triumphant return, Mr. DBq Hams.
I am back and part of the delay as well, so good to be back, gentlemen.
Yes, having all kinds of issues this week, actually. That's all right. We'll get through it. And as I said at the beginning there, this is our newscast, so we're going to be talking about a lot of news, actually, this week. More than, actually, I found a lot of articles, but I only put a few down there, trying to keep it short. So let's start off with you, Mr. DBq, and a little game called Destiny 2, which is what was giving me problems already.
It's too big of a file size for you. No,
Yeah.
so Destiny 2, the reveal was today. It was 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. A nice Twitch stream. Luke Smith came out and to a room full of press and enthusiasts, and lots of happy and an easy sell in terms of coming into that. So I'm going to go through a couple quick news items here related to it, and we'll keep the pace moving. So again, Destiny 2 obviously is coming out this fall. We've got 4 new locations. Well, we've got Earth, which is not a new location, but the Exclusion Zone, which is a new area, which is in Europe, and actually was part of it was a Crucible map. It was a rumored space within the original Destiny. And then we get 3 other planet or planetoids. We get Nessus, which is kind of one location. And it looks to be, and then there's Titan. And then Io. And on each of those, it looks like there's going to be some story elements, obviously, but one of the 3 Vanguard members from the original game in terms of your Titan, your Warlock, and the Hunter are all going to be on. Cade as the Hunter, Akora as the Warlock, and Zavala as the Titan. Each of them will be on one of the different planets, and so there'll be some story elements wrapped around there. They talked a lot about some of the different parts of exploring the world. So in addition to patrols, there's going to be other type of activities, including obviously public events will return. They're going to include, they mentioned saying the map will include a where and a when. So no more going to something like Destiny Public Events Tracker or other things to get that information. Also, the fact that there's a map is news. It doesn't look anything too revolutionary. It looks to be very similar to a Ubisoft open world Assassin's Creed, Far Cry type of map in terms of marking those points. But some of those points will include adventures, which are going to be kind of side quests with different mechanics. And there's going to be lost sectors. They described them as being more like dungeons with loot and bosses at the end. So kind of mini adventures, and then some treasure maps, so other places to find and explore some lore within the world. There will be strikes will be returning. Crucible is going to have a new piece, or at least a new mode, but the big change in Crucible is that it will all be 4v4. So very similar to what player versus player is in Halo, or at least in Halo 5. They are 4v4 matches, and so it fits that as well. There will be a raid. They didn't really say where or when, but it will be part of that as well. Going through my notes here from the Twitch stream. And so we've also got new subclasses. So there, for the Titan, you are going to have a shield that will work very similar to a shield in Borderlands, the pre-sequel, where it will soak damage but could also be thrown out to attack an enemy. It looks to be what was the Defender. It was the Void style. It was purple, so it could replace the Defender bubble or maybe not. And then on the Hunter, you've got what looks to be kind of a staff, and it's operates similar to what the Arc Blade was in terms of a melee weapon. And then For the Warlock, it's going to be some type of solar-based sword that will have the ability to fling projectiles as well. The other piece, in terms of setup within the game structure, you'll be able to launch worlds, go back and forth between worlds and events without having to go back to orbit. So you'll be able to move right from one planet to the other. Again, kind of quality of life, not anything that should be super revolutionary, but it's nice to have. And one of the big other quality of life pieces is there are going to be some social clans. There's going to be clans within the game. You'll be able to take your clan, which has been operated off in a third party or on the Destiny website, and be able to pull them in, and they have something called guided games. So it's not a full matchmaking for things like raids or nightfall strikes, but it will be the ability to clans or groups that are looking for people can open up a game, and single or solo players that are looking for a group to play with can join in and play with a clan without any type of commitment, and potentially create some new friendships and new relationships, or at least some friends on a friends list that way as well. So the other final piece there is that the PC version looks to be coming out a little bit later than the console version. The PC version is going to be running at 60 frames per second, and running at 4K, or at least the ability to run at 4K, where the console version is going to be locked at 30. And the final piece, which I think is pretty interesting, maybe for another time, is that it will play on the PC exclusively through Battle.net. So really kind of diving into the MMO aspect of it and hooking it into Battle.net, and I wonder what that means going forward with Call of Duty and some other Activision Blizzard properties. So that are my notes. Gentlemen, did you catch anything else from some of the wrap-up news stories that we want to try to hit here before moving on to our next news story?
No, I didn't see anything. I think you covered it pretty well, actually. I only got to watch the first like 5 minutes maybe, so I kind of missed a lot of it. But I saw like the new abilities and stuff like that, so it looks pretty cool. The in-game map, is that like a full-on map? Because there was like the little map you have on your screen. So when they say in-game map, was that like a full map you could just kind of go to, or what are they talking about there? Because it's been a while since I played Destiny.
It looked, at least from the screenshot that they had, it was just on the backdrop on the stage, so it wasn't actually in-game, at least at what I saw. And it looked very similar to kind of pulling up a map in The Division in terms of giving you kind of a layout of where you are. It looked very similar to like a Far Cry map, and so yep.
This is an in-mission land map, right?
Yes, this is not your in orbit. Here's Earth, and here's your your multiple spots on Earth, which were kind of a map, but you really you could know that you had to. These were the areas that were kind of connected together, but how you actually got there, this looks to be something that operates more what, let's say, any type of in-game map has done for the last decade or more.
Okay. I missed that part, so I was just kind of wanting to clarify on that. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of cool stuff they're doing. Got some moons, I guess, and some planets, so that's cool. Still only 4 zones. I guess I'm assuming they didn't really say the size of them, though. So I mean, they could be huge potentially, I guess.
Well,
I think
it's for new, right? I mean, I don't.
Other than Earth, yeah.
Yeah.
So the planet screens that they showed, right, in the original game where you had Earth in the middle, or the tower in the middle and Earth on the bottom, and this one had Earth in the middle, and then you had the 3 other planets, and that was the only things that were showing up on the map select screen. And so my assumption is with 2 other DLCs already planned and purchasable, that there's certainly room on the page to add in planets, or at least areas. But at this stage, it looks like it's only those 4. So what we will, how big those are, they certainly alluded to making them feel much bigger, with the idea of a whole lot more world content, where you have things like the adventures and the dungeons to be able to go on. It feels much more like larger zones in an MMO, more than kind of sectioned off, stages.
Okay, cool. And I watched the story trailer, like the cinematic trailer that they had, and quite different, I guess, from the last trailer that they released. Kind of a more comedic thing. That first one, that teaser they kind of had. So I don't know. It just looked like it was almost two different games, I guess, to me. I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Well, I think the first one was very much just kind of a teaser. It was, it played both on the kind of the fun end of it and on the kind of bombast story end. This very much was the story. It gave you a reason to care about some characters, or anybody that had played the original one. It takes you to some familiar spots in the tower and destroys them in some beautiful graphics. And then, but even if you didn't play the first ones, and this is coming to Destiny new, I think they try to, they pit it as, the good guys being invaded by the bad guys, and you're fighting you're on the outs and fighting back. So it has a little more of a typical kind of heroic story arc, at least the way they set it up. So hopefully it makes it a little easier for somebody to jump into. Otherwise, I'm sure I could talk more about Destiny at any point in time, but for right now, let's kick it over to our next news story.
All right, so yeah, some more single-player action here with Splatoon 2. I think that was Zeux. What do we got going with Splatoon? Excuse me.
Yeah, so Nintendo had another direct this week, I guess, where they kind of predominantly talked about Splatoon 2 and one other, and ARMS. One of the things that incidentally dropped out in addition to that coverage was the fact that there is a Splatoon 2 single player, and there was a trailer that was displayed this week for that. It looked okay to me. It primarily features, and I definitely, the characters of Splatoon are largely nondescript to me. They kind of all look the same, so it's difficult to conceive of them being unique individuals. But I guess the single-player campaign in Splatoon 2 centers around, I think it's Callie, and a character, Marie. So it's two of the young female characters, one of whom is missing.
Yes.
Okay. One of whom is missing, and the other one is looking for her. So the trailer, kind of not a lot happens, right? She kind of runs around the town, and you kind of get to see a little bit of what the background is going to look like. But it primarily involves her chasing down somebody who looks like they might have some information about the missing individual student, I guess, and then having a brief interaction with her, and then kind of going into combat. I mean, it's neat that Splatoon has a single player campaign. I can understand it in the current industry where there's been a lot of blowback against shooters that have featured only a multiplayer component. But this is a game where I don't really know that it fits or it does a whole lot. In the single player campaign, the dynamic of Splatoon changes by an incredibly large amount when you inject the dynamic of 4-on-4, right? So I could kind of see in a game that heavily relies on the ballistic mechanics of different weapons or a particular kinematic, but Splatoon is kind of simple. I mean, I know it's a paint gun, and that's a little different, but I don't really know that you benefit a whole lot from a single player campaign. I don't know.
So Zeux, did you play the original Splatoon single player?
I did not play the original Splatoon, no.
Okay, so the original, I mean, and I think you're right that it comes across as kind of a, this is a team-based shooter, but the original single-player Splatoon ended up much more like a platformer. It felt it had some allusions to Super Mario Galaxy. There was a lot done with the mechanics of being able to travel through the paint and over areas, and so it was more puzzly and platformy than it was kind of just an action shooter with your paint gun. And that may be the case. I don't know what it's going to look like. The two squid, Callie and whoever, they were the ones who ran the shop and have a big kind of fan art scene in overseas. So potentially that makes sense. Splatoon was a big hit in Japan in terms of for Nintendo. So I could see why they'd lean on that as kind of their hook for this story.
Right. But we all know how Zeus feels about platformers, right?
Maybe you have to craft and then do some platforming.
Yeah, you gotta mix your paints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the like a minute or so of the trail. I think it was like 2.5 minutes or so, and it did seem more kind of like a demo, like a walkthrough playthrough, than more like a true trailer, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it seemed cool. So I mean, I guess unfortunately I never did play the original Splatoon either. Mostly just like a kind of demos here and there at stores, but
So
I always wanted to pick it up, but never got a chance.
and that would be a game design that I could actually appreciate more. So if it was and that's what I was thinking when I opened up the trailer, if it were just Splatoon 2, the 4-on-4, but just single player, right? Kind of like Unreal Tournament does it, like where there are bots, and you can play it as a single player, so you can start to understand the mechanics and the weapons, and the maps. That to me would be worthwhile. But I don't see how anything that you're really going to learn or be exposed to in the single player really helps you prepare to go out into combat with teammates in the 4v4. So
Do you guys
that's all.
think this is more of a kind of just pressure on them? Because you know how the internet reacts about just multiplayer only games, and they thought oh, you know what, we better throw a single player in here too. Not that Nintendo's obviously when they do single player, it's usually or a story mode, it's usually pretty good. But I mean, did you, like you said, was it? I mean, is it even necessary this time around? Was it more of a pressure thing, or did you actually think that they were actually thinking about this and say, hey, let's put a single player game in or a single player mode in here this time?
I don't know, DB, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't heard any rumblings in terms of any type of pressure or, the fact that there was any blowback at the time when it was released. I think people appreciated the single player game, but also had an understanding that it was pretty much a multiplayer game. So I don't know if they have some type of internal polling or test focus that provides that, or maybe it's simply just the idea of it provides them an offline mode, and Nintendo's always been about having something that can be on and offline, especially if you're taking this. It's a way to play it if you're on the go and not near a Wi-Fi spot, I suppose, with the Switch, and that may be part of their rationale. But yeah, I think the idea of having it, or even if there is some type of bot mode, would make sense as well, because then there is more of a direct comparison in terms of getting a layout of a multiplayer map and getting used to being able to try out different mechanics and different weapons.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that. When you're on the Switch, if you want to just jump into single player, that would make sense. All right, so if there's no other thoughts on Splatoon 2 as of now, let's jump on. I got a couple news stories here. We were talking about on Monday, Ubisoft. We were talking about their upcoming E3 and what they have announced, or if anything, what we'd like to see. And we kind of didn't find really too much. Obviously, Assassin's Creed was going to come out, and we had South Park, which it's been in development now for a while. But say their name, and I guess they appear all of a sudden, like the next day, I believe. It's like Beetlejuice, maybe more than 3 times, but we said their name. So they two things here. They have announced their conference date and time. So they are going on June 12th, which is I believe Monday, if I'm mistaken. And they're going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then that's 3 p.m. Central, which is for me and DB. So they're going to have their press conference at the Orpheum Theater. I think I'm saying that correctly. Sorry if I'm not. And along with that, they had their earnings report this week, or this past week or two, and some games came out. So obviously, Assassin's Creed, we pretty much knew about that. Also, maybe some surprises. A Far Cry 5. That's maybe not really a surprise. I'm sure they had Primal last year, so kind of this year they're going to go back to the numbered Far Cry series. And then The Crew 2, which me and Zeus were also talking about Monday. Zeus has that shock look on his face. So, and then they also have South Park. They actually gave a date here, if I could find it now.
So, okay, seriously, was there like an Ubisoft rep listening to our podcast?
I think maybe.
That's a little uncanny.
I know, they hit everything there, everything we talked about. It's like for everything we talked about, they announced something, but and I can't find the South Park thing right now, but they had announced South Park is sometime this fall, I believe it was. I'll look for it here in a second. But any of those games seem interesting to any of you? I mean, I know Assassin's Creed. I might pick up. That sounds kind of interesting because it's in the Egypt era or area back in the day. And Far Cry, like I said on Monday, I've kind of played it on and off, but I might wait on that one. And then The Crew, I've tried it out a few times here and there. I kind of have to dive deeper into it. I've only played maybe like 20, 30 minutes maybe. So any of those sound interesting to you guys?
So I saw the tweets of Far Cry 5 and The Crew 2. I think it might have been late Monday or somewhere near there. And there were rumors coming out around that Far Cry 5 might be set in the West, right? Like in Montana is what the rumors I heard. It'll be interesting to see where the location is, because that would certainly kind of, you're not going to be sending tigers or elephants in the middle of Montana. So it'll be interesting to see where that is. But in terms of, it's an Ubisoft game, so I'm happy to wait 3 weeks and it'll be on sale for $20 off, and then I might explore it a little bit more as well.
It's really weird, right? Because if that announcement comes out before we record Monday night, it's an entirely different podcast, right? We were largely uncertain about Ubisoft and kind of where they were headed and if they had all their stuff together, because of the dearth of things that we were like, man, what are they even going to talk about? And now all of a sudden they have this kind of huge lineup, right? Even in comparison to Activision, of things that they're coming out that, until we see them on screen, on paper, kind of seem fairly well diversified, right? For a publisher that really, quite honestly, has 3 to 5 franchises that in a lot of ways are kind of the same game, just with a palette swap. And that still applies to Far Cry because they're just becoming like, I don't know, I'm close to a descriptor, but I haven't quite got it locked down. But they're very much an Assassin's Creed. It's Assassin's Creed first-person view, right? Is kind of what that franchise is becoming. They're going to time hop to different eras, which is exactly what Assassin's Creed does. And the investment is going to be in, seeing the different weapons throughout the eras. Still, I'm a sucker for Old West games. They have largely been pretty successful in the last decade or so. I mentioned a Prime, and I think he kind of feels the same. That one of my favorite games of all time in the 21st century has been Gun from Activision. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. And I'm particularly interested to see what they will have learned for The Crew 2. And it's a really crowded racing release holiday season once again, right? We've got a Need for Speed coming. We've got The Crew 2 coming. And we're going to have a Forza Motorsport coming out for Scorpio. So it'll be very interesting to see how that shakes out.
No Gran Turismo?
Oh, yeah, and Gran Turismo Sport. Although,
is that coming out, or they haven't announced anything?
No, it's supposed to be coming out. I still don't know. Right, and we're guys who dive deep into this stuff, right? I'm a big, huge racing fan who dives deep into this stuff, and I don't quite understand exactly what Gran Turismo Sport is. I'm not really clear if it is the flagship title or if it's like the goofy, like pre-release Gran Turismo that we got on the PlayStation 3. There's this talk that it skews more towards esports and online gaming, but I'm like, what the heck does that even mean in a racing genre game? Like, it's a typical polyphony poo, right? Where these guys are off doing something funky and weird on their own. They're given, an infinite amount of time to do it while that platform still hasn't had a flagship racing game other than Drive Club. And I still don't get it. So, no, I don't heap Gran Turismo into that pile of these more straight stick releases that I clearly understand what their business objective is until that game actually releases or gets closer and is a little more defined, at least at my level for me, to understand whether or not it's actually in that same mix with those other 3 racing titles.
Yeah, and South Park's going to be October 17th. That's going to be the release date for now. Well, who knows? Because it's been delayed about 3 or 4 times now, at least. So let's jump on to the next article here. Zeus, I believe you have a game that you have to work as a team.
Yes, and I didn't know this thing was coming. It is officially the thing that I am the most excited about this year. It looks like it's going to play a little similarly to I'm going to forget the title of it. It's like Rebel. It's some game that I played last year that was highly focused on marine combat in space, and it was kind of focused on you. You had broadside guns, right? And that's kind of what the focus on the space naval combat was. This looks kind of similar. It's going to definitely evoke some feelings of Homeworld and Homeworld 2 from back in the day. But basically, it's kind of a blend between Homeworld, EVE Online, those kind of games. But they're intermixing a lot of the elements that we're seeing in arena first-person shooters now. So players will be able to select classes of ships. I think there are 4 initially, and there may be kind of sub-classifications within that, but there's a Dreadnaught, there's a destroyer, there's an artillery destroyer, which kind of acts like a sniper, and there's a tactical cruiser. So, and these guys talk about some of the play sessions that they had playing this thing. This game is called Dreadnaught, by the way, if I didn't mention that. And talked about, just kind of how the action unfolded. And it sounds like the exact type of thing that I would be very excited to play. This specific news story, which was up over on Polygon and came out at the beginning of the week, talks about how there is now a Horde mode that is going to be made available on the PlayStation 4. So this game is in development. It's by a large menagerie of development studios and publishers. It's Jaeger Development and 6 Foot are the 2 studios working in tandem. The publisher, I'm forgetting right now. I'm sure I'll see it somewhere through. But there's both a PC version and a PS4 version, at least in progress. There may be one for the Xbox One. I'm not certain. But the key thing is right now, because their development tracks are a little bit out of kilter, there are features that are going to be specific to PC versus features that are specific to PS4. The development intent is eventually, the publisher is Graybox, by the way. None of those names really mean anything to me. I haven't heard of these studios or this publisher before. But the intention, and I think there's a Kickstarter element to it to a certain extent, because there will be founders packs available for the PS4. But the development track intent is to eventually sync the 2 different versions up and make the features the same across both. It's just that the PC version, specific to this Horde mode, the PC version was too far ahead, and they didn't want to inject that instability into the code heading into the final months of development. So they're implementing that on the PS4 version, but will eventually port it over to the PC. So you guys have questions on this, or does this seem like it'd be something that would be right up your guys' alley? I don't know how much you guys are into nautical or faux nautical or space combat.
So as a sci-fi nut, I'm always interested in something like this. I think it's a neat application, especially on the PC, and for what Elite Dangerous has done, and some of the other counts. I'm trying to think of, like, not Rogue Galaxy, but there's a couple other ones out there that are into that same mold. But Jaeger, the publisher, Jaeger is they did Spec Ops: The Line was the last thing that I remember from Jaeger. And I thought they had kind of gone through some changeover there, so that whether or not they're the same as they were, it'll be a question, but definitely a capable studio. So that's great.
Yeah, the game that it reminds me of that I played last year was called Rebel Galaxy. So,
Rebel Galaxy, not Rogue Galaxy. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, yes, and that I don't know. There might be videos of those on my YouTube channel. There were definitely some on my Twitch stream, but that was one that, like I said, heavily focused on like broadside combat and big capital ship size combat, which this one sounds like it's definitely going to be. I'm so looking forward to this game, and I didn't even know that it was on its way out.
Neat.
Nice. And this was free to play, right? If I'm reading this correctly.
I believe I did see.
Looks like it.
Yep.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, this would definitely be something I'd want to check out if it comes to the Xbox One, which I don't see here in the article if it says that or not, but I'm just kind of skimming through it. But definitely PC and PS4, so yeah, we'll have to check it out if it does come to Xbox One, because I don't think my PC would be able to handle this, unfortunately, but that's all right. So we got really quick here. Last 2 news articles I just want to go through are a couple of game announcements that came out. Excuse me, this past week. The Wall Street Journal claims that The Legend of Zelda will be coming to mobile. So they're thinking this is one of the 5 games that Nintendo had announced that were going to come out sometime, or at least in the fiscal year. So 2017, March 2017 to 2018, I guess, or maybe I got that reversed. So we had Miitomo, which I don't know if you really call that a game, but all right. We had Super Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes, and we know that not Fire Emblem, Animal Crossing will be coming sometime this year, and they're thinking after that one, the 5th one is going to be Legend of Zelda. Fortunately, there was no other information that they had received or obtained, so it's pretty much it. Just that there's a game coming for Legend of Zelda, and then the other one is Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 from Warner Brothers, and that actually has a release date of November 17th. And once again, that was just a quick little trailer that they released. You kind of see Baby Groot running. There's explosions going everywhere, and then Doctor Strange kind of pops out with there's the Lego sign there, and he kind of teleports the number 2 into the frame. So that was pretty much it. Really not too much meat on there, but I'm looking forward to that one. I really liked the first Lego Marvel. I played that with my son. I played it by myself. I beat it. One of the few games I did beat last year. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. There's a kind of a hub world, and kind of you could just kind of do what you wanted, just play around in the world. So it was kind of neat, and just kind of unlocking different characters. So it'll be nice to see what they do with this one. And it looks like the villain is going to be Kang the Conqueror, future villain. He is from I believe the 30th century, if I remember correctly. And so he'll be the main villain of the game. So that should be interesting. We'll get different timelines, maybe different. Maybe they go alternate realities, because it looked like they had a screenshot, or not a screenshot, but like promo art or something of like Spider-Gwen and those other kind of characters. So we'll see what comes about that. So anyone interested in that? I think you played Lego, didn't you, DB? Lego Marvel?
Yeah. Yep. No, I played Lego Marvel. I think the big difference, it looks like, and the interesting piece here would be that the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Doctor Strange appear to be part of the Marvel universe, the cinematic universe, but Spider-Gwen and Spider-Man 2099 are not part of that cinematic universe. So how they blend those together, and again, the original one was much more in the comic universe, and then they had Lego Avengers, which was the cinematic universe. So this one kind of starts blending that. And again, as some other sites have pointed out, there's no hint of any X-Men or Fantastic Four. So we will see what happens to those Fox-held properties as well.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, because they were in that first game. So
yep, but there's a more of a reveal trailer coming next week, the week of the 20th. That there's more gameplay coming. Yes,
on the 23rd to be exact, they'll have a longer trailer. So we'll get to see what maybe they'll show Kang, because they didn't show any of the villains or anything. They just kind of said that in the article. So that should be cool. So if anybody else have any other comments, anything before we head out tonight?
The only thing I'll mention is a couple fact checks. So no Xbox version that I saw on Dreadnaught. And interestingly enough, I think it was Jaeger, was one of the studios that got yanked off the Dead Island 2 project a couple of years ago. So I guess there was a little bit of controversy or some not getting along with others that went on there. And apparently this is either their new gig, or maybe they already had this in progress. So I'm glad it sounds like it's heading for the finish line, because this thing, it's been, I think it was first shown at E3 in like 2014. So it's had a bit of an extended development cycle. Again, it looks very promising. And the best thing about free-to-play, because when you said free-to-play, I was like, oh, no, I'm out, because I just generally don't play free-to-play. They just tend not to meet my needs in terms of quality usually. And also I don't like confusing pricing models, right? I'm just like, sell me the game for X amount so I can be done with it. But in this case, with a game that is just specifically targeted at me and like the things I like in my game style, free-to-play may just maneuver me into a space where I play this on both platforms, with different teams. So that'll be pretty interesting.
They can always find a hook to get you in, Zeus. To get anybody in, no matter what. All right, so that'll bring us to the end of this episode of Bandit Gamers. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share to this episode and to the channel. Tell your friends, tell your family, and on behalf of myself, Osiris Prime, Zeus, and DBq Hams, we will see you next time on Monday, and for our regular Bandit Gamers number 89. So, see you next time, guys.